Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Devora Gila Berkowitz, and we're going to discuss our soul's purpose and desires. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. While you're there, you can sign up for a monthly email where I share the best articles I read this month, let you know about upcoming episodes, and share a little wisdom. You can also listen to coaching calls under the Coaching Calls tab. I also share the most interesting articles I read every week on Facebook at facebook.com/Richer Soul. And there's also a Facebook group where you can ask questions and interact with other listeners. Today's focus is on spirituality. I'm still working in this area to go deeper into myself and understand what I really want, and then to focus on just that. It's hard when there are so many distractions. I believe the universe is all connected, and yet I don't understand exactly how. However, I've noticed that when I'm clear on what I want, and I show up and do the work, the universe provides. Opportunities happen. It's like I'm sending out a signal saying, this is what I need. Now, just thinking about something is not going to get you results. You have to show up and do the work as well. Finding the time to reflect and have inner conversations requires us to be a bit intentional and put time on our schedule. I know that for me, it's part of my morning routine. It's creating that inner peace so that whatever happens in life, you know everything is going to be okay. We're going to try and figure some of this out today with our guest. Devora Gila Berkowitz is passionately committed to helping high-achieving professionals connect with their soul's purpose, create more time for themselves, and have more energy so they can feel happier and healthier. She's a transformational coach and healer who believes you can find more balance and meaning so you can enjoy greater levels of well-being in your professional and personal life. Devora has been trained by master coaches and healers, and she creates powerful breakthroughs for her clients while guiding them to live a more fulfilling, balanced, and meaningful life. Outside her professional passions, Devora loves ethnic cooking, world music, starry nights, and spending time with her husband and 4 spirited, creative children. Let's meet our guest. Welcome to Richer Soul, Devora. It's great to have you join us today.
Thanks for having me here, Rocky.
So we always start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Oh, when it comes to school, I don't think they taught us at all about money. But as far as my family, I had some good examples there. Well, first of all, going back, my grandparents were immigrants, and so they definitely lived beneath their means. And I remember my mother told me she had only one doll growing up. That was her only toy. And I was like, wow, I couldn't imagine just having one doll. So my parents did better economically than their parents. And one of the things they did, I remember my father's coupon collection. He had like a couple of shoe boxes filled with coupons, and he would sit there on Sunday mornings clipping out the coupons. And so I learned you save money however you can. We didn't shop in extravagant stores. We bought things on sale. So I learned about being frugal. And then there was another aspect of my mother would say sometimes if something got lost or broken, she would say, it's only money. So on the one hand, I had this message that it's so important to save money and be frugal with money. On the other hand, other things are more important, like your health, or thank God it wasn't something else. And there was also this side about, I remember during tax time, this talk about, the government wants to take your money and not trusting rich people and that kind of thing. So always having that sense that you just have enough and that's good enough. And I always had what I needed and I didn't really ask for more than that. And I also was very, supported in my talents. I had music lessons when I showed that I was ready for that. And I was supported to do different activities. Yeah, so that was pretty much my background. Also, I earned an allowance, but I remember that I didn't really spend money. I earned the allowance by cleaning the bathrooms in the house. There was one day when my mom set the kids down and said, okay, you're all getting a chore, and these are the chores, and my brothers left me with cleaning the toilets. So that's how I earned my allowance, but I never really bought anything. And I was always saving it. I didn't really feel that I could allow myself to really have anything special, right? Because of this living within your means kind of message. And I remember one day after always telling my mom, here, take my money. I'm not going to spend it. You will put it away for college. Because there was this message, you put your money away for college. And then one day, the money was used for college and it was gone. And it kind of hit me like, oh my gosh, it's gone. And looking back, I kind of wish that I had created a relationship with that money where I could have felt like it was a celebration. Like finally, wow, I got my goal. I did it. I paid for my own college semester. And instead it felt like, oh no, the money's gone. So I guess that's one message that I would have liked to have gotten more of like a celebration of when you finally do spend money on yourself, which I was able to kind of repair later on my own.
And you did go to a pretty impressive college, didn't you?
That's right. I was a legacy at Harvard, meaning that my father went to Harvard and my brother went to Harvard. And so my dad went to Harvard back in the day when it was like $500 a year, to give you an idea. And yeah, in fact, I was so set on going to Harvard because my father would talk about it and he would talk about his experiences in the band and how wonderful it was. So I had my heart set on going to Harvard since the 5th grade, if you can imagine. Being 11 years old and putting all that pressure on yourself, like this is where you have to go. I was very stubborn in my mind. I would actually cry anytime I got a bad grade for the next 7 years or so because I had my heart set on going to Harvard.
At $500 a year, I'm in. Unfortunately, it's no longer $500 a year. It's gotten quite expensive.
That's right.
Was it worth it? For somebody today considering it, I mean, times have changed. Clearly, economics of a degree have to be taken into account. Looking back, and I don't know what your tuition bill was at Harvard, but what would you advise your kids today for Harvard?
Well, this is such an interesting question, Rocky, because I remember that my mom was very set on me going to a state school. And I had never shared with her, or my dad for that matter, on my vision of going to Harvard. And when I found out what was in mind for me to go to SUNY Albany, or not that there's anything bad with that, but I just had my dream, I really pushed for what I really wanted. At the time, I was able to get some scholarships, which I guess kind of reduced the tuition, but not so much. And thank God my parents were behind me in that vision. And so they paid for it. And it wasn't with a little of hemming and hawing because of the price. And they also knew that I worked really hard. I was top third in my class, and it was this family tradition. And nowadays, if you're asking me if I would suggest that to my kids or to someone else's kids, I think the economy has changed. I think that opportunities are a little bit different than they were before. And this value for liberal arts education, I think that's changed as we move more towards technology and the world's needs are changing a little bit. really just off the top of my head, I'm looking at myself now, and I have, with that education, also I went on for a master's, and I had a career before I became an entrepreneur. I was a Spanish teacher. I loved that, and I got a master's in Spanish. So now I'm, at a different stage in my life, and I love what I'm doing, and I'm living this desire, that my soul's desire, that I feel like I need to be doing for the world. And I had some training to do it, but certainly not like a $30,000 a year or $300,000 education in order to do it. And we look around and we see a lot of successful people that dropped out of college and didn't finish, and they went on to become millionaires and more. So I think it really depends on the goals that your kid has. I think it depends on their motivation. If they're really set on being a doctor because that's their calling in life, to find that way to make that happen. I would say most kids right now, I would say in America, for example, aren't so sure and clear what they want to do. I think childhood is kind of prolonged a little bit more these days, as opposed to if you go to the European countries, or for example in Israel, where I am now, where college is actually delayed after you've been to the army and you've had a chance to grow up and really figure out what you want to do. So I guess the short answer would be there are ways to have a successful and meaningful and fulfilling life without having to foot the bill of an Ivy League education. And on the other hand, if there's something super specific and there's a means to be able to do that without creating a total hardship for the family, then that's a choice that you could make. Does that make sense?
I think it makes total sense. And everyone needs to be clear on what they want and what their intentions are and how this piece of the puzzle fits into their bigger life goals, because maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I think a lot of people just have a vision or a dream without the reality of what it truly means. And so you have to be clear for yourself. It may make sense, it may not. And I think it's up to the individual family and kid. And then you have to look at the economics of it and see if it makes economic sense or there's a better way to spend your $300,000. So you have 4 kids. Are you doing anything differently to teach your kids about money?
Yeah, there is one thing that I didn't want to pass on to them. And I'm not saying that I got this from any one person or it could have been a cultural, societal thing. But there is that aspect where I felt that I couldn't necessarily spend money on myself. And here's an example. I remember when I was first living in Israel, a young mother, well, not so young, I was in my late 20s, but having little kids, and I would go to the grocery store, a little store in this little village on top of a hill with all your needs there. And I would do some shopping and fill up the cart and get to the cash register and look in the cart. And I had taken something for myself, maybe a goat cheese or a rice milk or something, feeling really excited I was going to take care of myself. So I'm at the cash register and I'm looking at all that. I'm thinking of how much it's going to cost. And I say, you know what? I don't really need that. And I'll take out the goat cheese or I take out the rice milk and I put that back in the refrigerator and I do without. And there was a kind of pride in doing without. And that's a kind of message that I don't want to pass on to my kids. And I try really hard to ask for something, to not say things like, for example, we can't afford that, to say it in that way, because I don't want them to grow up thinking that they grew up in poverty or anything like that. And I'm careful not to say, well, you can't have that or you have to earn that. And I try not to say that because I don't want them to feel that they're not worthy, which is actually a very deep limiting belief for a lot of people, that they feel they're unworthy or undeserving of having things or taking care of themselves. So that's one thing that I try to make sure not to pass on. I want them to feel that the universe is abundant and that if there's something that they want, they can find a way to get it. And sometimes if I see that as a family, we cannot personally get that to them at this time, I mention that they can earn some money for it as a suggestion, or that they can use, let's say, their birthday gift money for that so that they feel empowered. The bottom line is to not disempower my kids. I think that's what I would say about that.
And I think that's a worthy goal. And you were making choices between needs and wants, and we all have a ton of wants, but we don't have many needs. Those are choices that we all have to make, and we have to make them for ourselves and figure out our budgets and live within them. Because at the end of the day, money stress is one of the largest stresses that's out there. And if you can make the choices up front, not to get stuck in a situation, then it's much easier. And so I know a lot of people have done different things with their kids, and one of the things they might do in that type of situation is kind of challenging them to say, that's great, you want that, let's figure out how to make it possible. And then that kind of brainstorms ideas and conversations about how to bring that about. And then it also teaches the value of money. So they learn that, it does take work to have the things that we desire. So it's somewhat of a back and forth.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And so you said something in the conversation, and I'd like to dig into that a little bit more. You said you're living your soul's desire. What does that mean?
Yeah. So if you think about life as we're here on this planet and we were created for a particular purpose, and life has more meaning than we're just physical beings in a physical world. If you believe that we are actually reflections of the divine in a physical form, and we have potential for goodness and caring and kindness and generosity and all those godly traits, our soul really has this desire to ultimately connect to that source, whether you call that the divine or God, or if you name that the universe, or if you have, a higher power or a name like that. And so the soul's desire is really that kind of divine desire planted in you. How does the divine need you to express that divinity in the world? These are, big concepts, and not everybody thinks about them. And so when it comes to my soul's desire, at different points in my life, I had different desires or purposes. And ultimately, it really is about helping the next person. It is about being my best self. It's about helping others be able to be their best selves. And for different coaches, it has to do, they might choose to help people through relationships or through health, coaching people on their health, or like yourself, a money coach. And so what calls to my heart is a reflection of the challenges that I have had to overcome, helping people who are feeling a lot of stress and overwhelm in their life, and they're feeling that they're not enough and they need to push themselves and overwork and have a lot of drive in order to get the things that they want. And you mind if I tell a little bit of a background about that awareness?
Absolutely. Please do share.
I was always a super overachiever. I mean, how could you get into Harvard and not be an overachiever? And I remember one conversation I had on a break from college with my mom. I remember we were driving in her Toyota Camry, driving down the road. We got to a stop sign, and I said to her, Mom, if I don't learn how to be a type B personality, then I'm sure I'm going to have a heart attack by the time I'm 40. And it was such a profound thing to say. And it's kind of like happened to be a prediction. I didn't have a heart attack, but I was, a mother of 3 kids, and I had moved to Israel, and I had taken on a totally different life. It was a new language. It was a new culture. I had decided to become religious. I grew up as a conservative Jew, and I had an inner voice, an inner calling, wanted more, right? It wasn't enough to just be traditional. So, I needed to go all the way and become religious and move to Israel. All this pressure, raising kids. I needed to be the best wife, the best mother, and not having family around, not having that support. And all that internal stress. And, right, remember I put back the goat cheese. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't resting. I wasn't getting my nutrition and pushing myself. And the short story is I ended up in the hospital with an autoimmune condition related to my neurological system. So I was basically having inflammation in my brain and in my spinal cord and in my optic nerve, with a rare condition that's like 1 out of every 100,000 people. And I started to actually lose the sight in my left eye. And this was a huge wake-up call to me to not only slow down, but also to focus on what's important, to focus on my relationships and not just what I want out of the relationship, not just to focus on what my kids need to be doing so that I can feel like I'm the perfect mother, but to focus on them as individuals and how they're expressing their divinity in the world and how they're expressing their soul's desire and bringing it up a level. And so that was a huge wake-up call to me. I started taking care of myself, invested in different practitioners to help me get back my health. And I remember just going deep, deep, deep into this just deep journey of just knowing that I needed to connect to myself. And I really was listening to my inner voice, listening to the divine revealing itself towards me, to me, and what my next steps had to do. So that's kind of what happened, and how I got into the coaching had to do with the work that I was doing, teaching people singing. At the time, I had been giving performances for women, singing original spiritual music, and then I burnt out with this disease, and as women were coming to me for singing lessons, I started, I don't know how it happened, but I started teaching them, to connect with their inner voice and their spirituality. And instead of just teaching them the voice technique. And what happened was, for these women, they started not just singing better, but they started improving their relationships in their lives. So as their voices were expanding and getting clearer and more beautiful, their marriages were improving. One woman even got pregnant after years of trying. One woman met her soulmate, and I saw their lives blossoming, and I knew that there was something really, really special about helping people tune into their divine connection, into that spiritual side. And that's when I chose to focus on helping people do that. So that all came around burning out from not feeling good enough.
That whole thought of I am not enough is a major issue that I think is prevalent in society. And, I think people think that the better they do and the more money they have, that the less that occurs. But that is absolutely not true. For a lot of people, the more they have, the more they have the fear of I am not enough, and they may think that they're actually an imposter or that they don't deserve what they have, and then they're also trying to hang on to it, so they get faster and faster onto the wheel trying to hold on to what they've achieved. And I noticed you said you had an autoimmune disease, and I don't think a lot of people realize how much diseases like that and many of the other diseases we get are tied to our mental attitudes, our stress levels, and how we take care of ourselves. And inflammation is kind of the body's response to say, you're not taking care of the body properly. And you don't need necessarily, and I don't know that you use drugs for your therapy, but many times drugs are not the answer, because all they're doing is putting a Band-Aid on the situation, and you're not fixing the underlying issues that are there.
Exactly. In fact, I refuse to take. Now, some people really, really need it. I don't want to say don't, but what works for me is that connection to, all disease. There's an idea that all disease is based on a spiritual fixing or an emotional fixing, something that needs to be fixed, secured inside. And it's all about each person's journey, looking deeper inside at that message. What do you need to learn for your life? Where do you need to slow down? Where do you need to connect? And I think that the divine sends us these messages through getting ill, helping us to slow down so that we can start changing our lives. And, God forbid, I really don't wish this on anyone, but what you're saying is absolutely true, that our limiting beliefs about not feeling enough, or later on, if that leads to not feeling worthy, leads to even more and more stress, and the stress that causes these diseases. And it's not necessary. It doesn't have to be that way. We could really nip it in the bud before it gets to that place.
So why do you think most people get stuck on this kind of, call it a hamster wheel, of chasing after things and losing touch with their inner selves?
Well, that is a super good question. And for me, the way I see things, it always comes back to connecting to something bigger than yourself. There's this idea that if you want to do public speaking or singing, and you're really worried about how you're looking or sounding, you're really nervous and you're focusing on yourself, you're not going to really reach other people. The minute that you go out from yourself and you focus on the other person, your message comes across, your voice is clear, your voice is beautiful. And I think that's really connected to this idea of focusing more on not just what I can accomplish for myself, but what can I do for others? And I've heard you talk in your podcast about giving, how giving is so important, and it's not just about earning for yourself. It's all about connecting to that bigger picture, connecting to the reason why you're here. We're not here just to be consumers. We're here also to be generators and to help other people. So it's that connection that people are missing.
And I think some people struggle with this bigger picture, and they think that that means that they have to change the world. They have to do something big. They have to affect 1 million people. Is that what you find the case? Or when you talk about connecting to a bigger picture, you mean something different than that?
I think it really depends on the person's soul desire, if they're tuned in. Some people really are meant to touch millions of lives. Some people are meant to touch another person. Maybe it's their spouse, or maybe it's a few people like their children. Maybe it's their community. I think that's very individual. And there's this concept in my tradition, which is, and I'm sure it's also a general concept as well, which is when you change one person, you change the world, because each of us is a world. And, how fun is it when you see, let's say on Facebook, videos of someone going out to help, a homeless person, and then it gets shared to 1 million people. Spreading these messages. So you never know. You never really know how your influence in the smaller microcosm really affects the bigger picture. I don't know if that's helpful to this discussion, but I think it's very individual, and to not feel like you have to impact millions just because someone else is doing it. Maybe that's not your purpose. Maybe that's not your mission. So you really have to tune in and get clarity on what that mission is for yourself.
And I think that's important. I think a lot of people are always chasing someone else's dream, and that isn't necessarily their dream. And you do have to have clarity. What is it that I want, and why is it that I want that? And to really dig into what that true underlying why is. And it takes time. I don't think it's something that you may get right the first time, and you might try something and find out that's not what I thought it was going to be. And so you go back to the drawing board and you try again. And as you go through different phases of life, you may find that you have different purposes. When you're younger, you have one purpose. Once you have kids, you have a different purpose. Once your kids are gone, you may find yourself looking to do something different. As you go through seasons of life, they each come with their own kind of clarity and their own purpose and their own desires. And so you've got to constantly be checking in with yourself to make sure that you're on your right path and that you're constantly course correcting.
Right. And as long as it's not so self-focused and it does connect to the greater world, I think the easier it's going to be. People get so worried on themselves and what they're doing, and they really get stuck there, and it causes a lot of stress. Whereas if they take a moment to think about how they can help, how they can give, how can they impact the world even in small ways, that can really help them ease that process of figuring that all out.
And so you tend to help people who are kind of overwhelmed and stuck in that cycle to get out of the cycle. What does that look like?
So there are many different ways that a person can get unstuck. And I've come up with my own process to help people do that. And not just, do it for them. So I'm a coach and a healer. So a healer is someone who, fixes your problems, and, does things for you. And a coach is someone who helps you discover how to solve your own problems. And I love that, because ultimately we're all responsible for our own lives. So I do a little bit of both. Where a person gets stuck, I can, as a healer, come on in, and as a coach, help them figure stuff out by themselves. And so the first step of that process is just awareness, just being aware of where you are now, because you can't really move ahead and get out of being stuck until you realize how you are stuck. And that's on a few different levels. That's in your mindset. What are your beliefs that you think about? Where are you limiting what's possible for you? What are your beliefs that came with your upbringing and your childhood and with the society? Do you feel like you're not good enough? Do you feel like you're not worthy or deserving? Do you feel like you have to push yourself to get what you want? Where are you stuck? Just having awareness on that. And once they have awareness with that, then it's all about being present with that, having presence and not resisting. It is so easy to walk around all day thinking of how bad we are or how we can't do something, and feeling bad about that. And at the same time, resisting, saying, I wish I didn't feel so bad about it. Why am I feeling so bad about it? So after you're aware of where you are, you really need to just be with that without judging, right? Not judging yourself, and just allow those feelings to be. It's so important. A lot of people do not take the time to feel their feelings because they're so uncomfortable. It's not fun to be in anxiety or to feel resentment or jealousy. Like, we push those feelings away. So it's really important to feel those feelings so that you can release them. And then once you've released those feelings, you can create a new belief system for yourself. You can't take on a new mindset until you've released the old ones. And that's a big mistake that a lot of people make. People who are into personal growth and transformation, and they say, I'm going to say these affirmations every day and change my life. You really need to let go of the old beliefs first, right? So creating that new mindset, what do you want to believe instead? Right? So do you want to believe that you can be abundant and also do it with grace and ease? Do you want to be a person who feels open and free and flexible? Whatever it is, right? So then you would create your own mindset. Then it needs to be something that resonates with you. And that's what I help my clients check in. Sometimes we take on a mindset that's just like maybe 2 or 3 steps ahead of where we can really be comfortable stepping into that. And then after you've created your new mindset, it's all about taking action. Even if the only action you can take is to get help. So I have a really funny story about that. I have a son who's very, very talented on the computer, and he designs cartoon characters and comics and does YouTube videos and edits them so they're hysterical, with memes and things like that. The problem is that, like lots of kids these days, sitting on the computer hour after hour after hour, and it's not healthy. And as a result, he gets really agitated and moody, and that's not fun for anyone. And so I was looking at myself, feeling like I was so helpless. I was trying to encourage him and suggest and put rules up, and nothing seemed to work. And I was feeling like really like I can't do this. And I said, wait a second. Let me be with that feeling, right? So my limited belief was like, I can't change the situation. So I was present with that, was able to let that go. And, as soon as I let that go, I came up with, the new mindset that I can get help. And so my idea was, it's not a surprise that I got the new ideas because I let go of that sense of frustration. The new idea was to take him to the doctor, get help. Let the doctor tell him. He'll listen to the doctor. So we went to the doctor, and I said, my kid is feeling really agitated, and and moody lately. And by the way, he spends a lot of time on the computer, doesn't get exercise, and isn't eating well. Can you help him? Can you give him any advice? And I'm like, wink, wink, wink. So the doctor said, well, let's order him a blood test. And my son was like, oh no, right? So that raised a red flag that this is a real problem. So I don't think anything's wrong with his blood. He just needs a new change of lifestyle. So the doctor and he discussed how he could bring more exercise into his day and take breaks and whatnot. So the lesson there, the message I want to give over is, taking action is so important to get things done. And sometimes the only action you can take is to ask for help. So that was the situation that we had there. So there you have it. Awareness first of where you are, letting that go by being present, and then creating a new mindset, and then taking action from that new place.
And so you said something interesting. You said to get one step ahead. And I think everyone wants an instant solution. They want to kind of skip the steps and just have the result. But it sounds like that's not going to work. How do you determine what's an appropriate step ahead? How do you know it's the right next one and it's not the one you need to first be ready for and do some work before you take that particular step?
That's a great question. And to be honest, in the work that I have done with clients and many, many, many people, hearing what their action step is going to be and they decide it, it is said with such inspiration and fervor when they come out with their new mindset. They are so excited. And it seems to be that they are able to intuitively match the next step that's right for them with the new mindset that they have. And so as long as you go through these steps, I have total faith that you can create the next action that's for you. No one ever comes up with an action step that's, 2 or 3 steps ahead of themselves. It's always the one that they're most comfortable stepping into and making a commitment for.
And I guess that's what it is. It's because it's not too scary. If it's too big, it's too scary. And yet some people say you need to go for that. And if it's scary, then it's all the more reason you need to take it.
Well, that's a different thing. That's also true. And that's called a stretch goal. And it really depends on where you are in your life and in your path. It really depends on what you're talking about. Well, also with the stretch goal. And what do I mean by a stretch goal? Let's say in your business, you want to make a certain amount of money. So you might have like a low minimum that you have to make. And then you have what you're aiming for. But then you have like this high in the sky, like crazy stretch goal that you want to go for as well. And so, if that's the case, you still need to have the mindset for that. And I think the message here is if you're going to have the stretch goal, set yourself up for that minimum goal as well, and for that medium goal. Let yourself experience success as opposed to something that's too far away. When we do that, that does bring up a lot of fear and doubt, and the whole thing can backfire. So it's pretty simple to set yourself up with those low, medium, and high goals.
And I agree with that. I think when people have to pay off wealth, one of the things they talk about is the debt snowball, which is pay off your smallest debt first. And the reason you do that is because it's the easiest. And once you have success, success breeds success. And so you want to create success in your life. And by hitting the smaller goals, they allow you to build up the ability to hit your larger goals and to kind of take those steps through it. And so it definitely works in all different parts of life.
Absolutely. And also we need to look at how we define success. Success is lurking in all kinds of unexpected places. For some people, depending on where you're at, success could be getting up in the morning. For some really exhausted moms, for example. Success can be in having a great conversation with a difficult person that that you were afraid to talk to. So we need to pat ourselves on the back also for these small successes as well.
Absolutely. While we're on success, what's one habit that's helped you achieve success?
Oh, wow. I love that question. I'll start with the opposite. One habit I had that didn't allow me to achieve success was not taking care of myself, right? The story I explained before. And part of that was not getting enough exercise and movement. And it's so incredible about how much we might understand that exercise is important or taking care of ourselves is important and how little we apply it. And so I have in my routine every week, several times a week, different choices about how I want to exercise. So I might go to the pool. I might take a walk in nature. There's this huge hill behind my house that's, quite a climb to get. Or we have different classes here. In Israel, it is very easy to go to a belly dancing class. That's great exercise, and that's lots of fun. Or a yoga class. So during my week, I've got different things on the schedule, and instead of locking myself into any particular thing, I see what the mood is for, and then I go do that thing. So it allows me to both have structure, but to also have flexibility and creativity within the structure. So definitely putting exercise in my routine is a huge contributor to feeling successful in my life and in my business.
And I as well try and work out 5 days a week. And I have different routines for different days and different things that I want to do. And it definitely, when your body is strong, everything else kind of flows from there. It gives you a whole different mindset and a whole different way of looking at things. And I'm also looking at it from an aging standpoint, because as you look around and you see, as people start to get older, they slow down. And the question is, how slow do I want to get? And the stronger I can get up front, the longer my slide down as I age.
So interesting how you put it that way. Yeah, I would love to just remind myself and you and everyone as well who's listening of how wonderful it feels just to get some movement, whether you like to walk or maybe you even like to dance. The connection that you're talking about between your body and all the, your mindset is so important. And it's also so simple because the body really can regenerate quite quickly. The body just responds so quickly. So, for anyone who has been just sitting around wondering if they should do some exercise, really the return on investment is very quick and it is really wonderful.
So speaking of return on investment, I think sometimes people think that they want change immediately, but change is not going to happen immediately. Change takes time. When you work with clients, how long do you think it takes for someone to go from that stressful life to living with their soul's desire?
There's a scientific answer to that question. And what we understand is that it takes about 3 months of work, and I've seen this over and over again, 3 months for a person to really develop a habitual awareness of their limiting beliefs, an awareness of their habits, awareness and a practice of observing themselves and understanding themselves. And then it takes another 3 months or so to let those new mindsets settle in and start creating those new habits. I had one client that couldn't understand at the 6-month mark, why she was feeling so lazy. I remember she got on the phone and she's like, yeah, she was feeling really relaxed. And she's like, what's wrong with me? And she was at the 6-month mark. She was a high achiever that always felt stressed and anxious. And she was finally able to let go of those limiting beliefs and use her new mindsets of flexibility and flow and positivity and joy, right? So that's the 6-month mark. And at the 12-month mark is when you've had another 6 months to put things into practice. And I've got a great example of that. So I was working with a woman. Now, this is a really extreme example, right? And tell me what you think of this. This woman had been in therapy for 40 years, and things, didn't necessarily work. Now, I'm not saying this is my completely ideal client. This is someone that I really was able to help. 40 years in therapy. She was currently, when she reached out to me, she was living in her apartment, raising her autistic son, like by herself. She was divorced. She had a very, very difficult life. And she was like estranged from her family, and she didn't talk to anybody. So within 6 months of working together, she was going out, meeting people, joining the communities. She was speaking with her family, asking for forgiveness, connecting with God, learning, sacred scriptures, going to, religious services, and increasing her spirituality. And I thought that was incredible. And then at 12 months, she was posting pictures on Facebook of her and her son in Times Square on New Year's Eve with like 1 million other people. So that's how far somebody can transform their lives in a year.
And you can transform your lives in a year. You have to know what you want, and then you have to do the work. It's not easy, but it's doable. And we've had tremendous amount of stories of people who've done it here. Some people have taken a couple years just to figure out what they want, but they just constantly keep moving forward. And over time, they get the success that they want. And that's what you have to do. You keep showing up, you keep doing the work, you keep leaning in, you keep stepping into your fears, and it will work out over time. It's not always easy.
Yeah, of course. And it's about taking one step at a time, each step after step after step. And some people are just afraid of jumping in and taking that first step. And what you're talking about, the action is absolutely right. And that is your return on investment. Each of those steps will have a return. And it might not be so visible at first. In the long run, you'll really feel that difference.
And it is. I think people overestimate what they can do in a day or in a week or in a month, but they underestimate what they can do in a year or 3 years. And if you keep showing up and you're doing the small steps, it's like that compound interest curve. It starts to compound. And over time, once you hit the bend in the curve, it just becomes amazing. But you have to keep showing up and doing the work. And that is not always the easy part. And that's why having someone to help you along that journey, and having someone to hold you accountable, and having someone there so that when you hit the hiccups that are going to occur, and also there's always the times when you slide back, having someone beside you to be able to help you through those types of things and hold you to your path is a dramatic help. And that's what coaches do.
That is so true. And every coach needs a coach. And I could not be where I am now in my life and business without my coaches and healers and mentors and teachers and colleagues and all of that whole support group, and especially the ones that do hold your hand and keep you accountable for all of those goals.
And it sounds like you've had a tremendous support system around you then. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about that? Because I think everyone thinks you have to do it alone. And I think it'd be important for them to hear how you build a team around yourself.
So when it comes to team, I think I have a little bit a different kind of situation as other people. First of all, I have my mentor in healing who I've been basically working closely with for the past 13 years. And it's a constant growth and relationship and learning and refining techniques and that kind of support where I'm getting feedback and trying new things. And in my business, one of my favorite clients is actually a company called the Coaches Console, which creates coaching software for the back end of a coaching business, everything you need to market your business and to run your business and to give your client the most exquisite support you can. Even though they're my client, there's a tremendous support network within that company. So within that company, I have coaches in that company who train me to help their clients. And there's the team of coaches within that company where we bounce ideas off of each other. And then there's the support behind the company, all the technology, where if something goes wrong in my system, I have some question that I can ask them. And like I said, everything is set up for me. So I don't have a separate billing and I don't have separate autoresponders. I don't have separate systems for everything. So I have that one platform, that one system. So when it comes to technology, I feel incredibly supported as well. So that's a little bit. And of course, I have my accountant and I have my graphic designer and people around me. Oh, and of course, I have my husband, who's my biggest support behind me. And you can't do it alone. If you're an entrepreneur, you can't do it alone. It's just nearly impossible. And if you're running a business, you need to have that team. And if you're just a regular individual, life is gets too complicated and you need to have your support systems. So it's just a little bit about that.
Absolutely. And I think it's important in your life that you have support systems, and in your business you have support systems. And when you have the team there to help you through things, it does make life a lot easier. Having the people there to help you through the struggles is important. Is there anything that we should have talked about today that I have not touched on yet?
I think I would like to just reiterate how having a concept of a spiritual connection can really enhance your experience in life and the success that you have in life and business. And to remember that you're not alone. You're never alone when it comes to your everyday experience, that there is a higher power looking out for you, that is with you, that you're even carrying in your life, if you believe that you're created in that divine image, which I do. That divine, greater entity really is running the world. That's who's in control. And that everything that happens to you is for your highest good and is personally created for you. All the situations in your life, it's a personal invitation to connect to that spiritual source and to grow to your next level.
And I think I've heard the quote that life happens for you, not to you. And so even when we have the struggles, they're happening for a reason, to make us stronger, to make us ready for the next task or the next thing that we need to accomplish. And so when we changed our mindsets to look at things that way and say, what are the lessons I can learn from this struggle? How can I get ahead? Then it really does help tremendously.
Beautiful.
So you have a special offer for our listeners. Would you like to share that and how people can find and connect with you?
Yes. I took you a little bit through my 4-step process that you can use basically to get a breakthrough on. You can use that process to get a breakthrough on anything in your life. I focus mostly on helping high achievers eliminate their stress. I give regular free trainings where it is such a delight to get on a call with a group of people and take them through this process. And it's an engaging experience. It's not just a webinar. It's more like an infomercial. No, it's not like that at all. It's actually engaging, interactive training experience where you can experience these 4 steps for yourself, get aware of where you are in your limiting beliefs. I will help you let go of those, become present and create a new mindset, and then choose your action step. And so I invite you to that to register for free training.
And if they want to do that, how do they find you and connect with you and sign up?
Yeah, that'll be a link that we'll put in this podcast.
I will have a link to your website in the show notes. Absolutely. And they can click on that and find you.
Great.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It was enjoyable to have this conversation.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoy talking to you as well. And I think you're doing wonderful work in the world.
Thank you. Are you living your soul's purpose? Do you know what it is for you? Don't forget to check out Devora's free offer. Her website is www.devoragilaberkowitz.com. And there's a link for the free training and her website in the show notes. I find it amazing how singing lessons can turn your whole life around. What is it for you that will cause a shift in the way you choose to live your life? Hey, thanks for listening. And since you're still here, you must have liked this episode. So please share it with some friends. I would appreciate that. And if you get a chance, leave a review. There's a link in the show notes that makes that easy to do. What's preventing you from moving forward, and who are you putting on your team to help build the life you deserve? Taking no action creates a far worse outcome in life than trying something and failing. Can I help you achieve your goals? Just email me, and we can start with a short chat to see if we're a good fit for coaching. For many people, one session allows them to take a giant leap forward towards their dreams. You can reach me at rocky@richersoul.com. I'd love to hear how you're doing and how the information I've shared has helped you. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.